Hello everyone, we are here with a pug that I think we got her like the day after we filmed the last one.
Yep, we adopted her because she's very sassy and picks fights.
Yep.
And so she only has one eye.
Yep. She kept picking on a German Shepherd that she knew as a puppy, and it kept growing bigger, and she apparently didn't make the connection. Now she only has one eye.
Yes.
But this is Ochako the Taco Doggo.
Yes. So we now have clickbait dogs.
Yes, we used to have Clickbait Cat. Don't have that anymore. Sad face.
We still have clickbait fish. We're just too lazy to move him.
Yeah, I don't feel like holding a fish in a bowl like this whole time. That's not. No.
But we do have clickbait pug.
Yes.
Anyway.
He's so ridiculous looking.
Yep.
So,
okay.
I know I left you guys with quite the. I haven't read all the reviews, but like I saw the length of some of these, and I'm like, oh boy, seems like some people have some things to say. So, let's get into it.
All right, Silver 4700. I believe this is from the previous chapter, but we'll still read it. A bit of a late review, but hey, what the heck. First, I really like what you've done with Hikari's new limitation, basically giving up sight, literally, and not so much, for power and vice versa. This is the law of equivalent exchange.
Yeah.
Deku and Blake's training session was pretty good, all things considered. This isn't a bash on you. I've just never really liked Blake's character in general. She's just bland. She's a bit better based on what you're doing in the story, but it honestly feels like I haven't seen much of her, and I'm indifferent to that.
Well, you'll definitely like my story then.
Lastly, the talk between Ochako and Hikari.
This one's mine. You know how this goes.
I do.
Hikari. So, you and I both know you have a thing for Midoriya. Ochako gets flustered. Hikari. Serves one per conspirator to make and train trace amounts of called it. Ochako. But how could you know that I have a thing for Deku in the first place? Hikari. Well, that part was quite simple. You see, I'm not an idiot. Tsukuyomi somewhere in the woods. Yep, that'll do it. Anyways, in all seriousness, I'm actually really glad you had the conversation take place because it saves us a lot of trouble in the long run. Yes, it does. And it was really nice and well-written conversation. Thank you, dude. I don't have much else to say except I'm super excited to see the villain attack in the next chapter. My best, Silver. Well, let's just see how excited people are still excited after this. Let's see.
All right, guest. Oh no, please tell me Kurai didn't just lose his arm, and if he did, please tell me that they can reattach it.
I'm guessing this person didn't see the video, but in the picture, yeah, the dude definitely lost his arm, and I'll go over this here in the chapter in a couple minutes, but hell no. No way are they going to be able to reattach that thing.
It's gone.
That is gone.
Alright, Joe Clone, You stole my plot point. I have a decade-long story thread for my own fan fiction, and you pull a stunt like this? Are you sure you didn't go through my DeviantArt page and see what might have been one of my earliest pieces depicting the end result of this plot thread?
Let me stop you right there, man. The only time I ever go on DeviantArt is to post my own stuff. And
you just got it.
I just got it like a couple months ago?
This was written a while.
And I've had this story planned out for ages.
It's like how Taylor Swift follows me around and writes stories about my life.
Please don't compare me to Taylor Swift.
Much prettier, don't worry. I'm kind of salty, but I know it had to be coincidence, right? If you're curious about what I mean, here's a link just to remove the space. www.
Yeah.
With that out of the way, this chapter was a hellstorm of emotional turmoil, and I love so much about it.
Man, you're a freaking sadist.
The action was snappy and visualized great. I love that Kurai's powered up form can go different colors, just like Masako X's color theory on his channel.
As I've mentioned before, this is somewhat derived from that, yeah.
The emergency was palpable, and I could feel the growing tension. God, no, arm puns. That ended harshly, though. Jeez, and thought my plan for an event like that was brutal.
Yeah, man, I honestly have no idea what you're talking about. Sorry. Yeah.
But hey, you know what? There's so many stories with similar plot points that are all great, right? So just because somebody did it doesn't mean you can't do it in a different way that works better for your story.
This is very true.
Like,
this is very true.
Yeah, don't feel like, dang it, because I think as an artist that happens to me all the time. I'm like, I think I have an original idea, and then I find like 20 million other people did it already. I'm like, dang it. But it's your idea, and you're going to do it your way, and that's okay. That's just how art works, right?
Absolutely.
All right, so what's going to happen now? Is Kurai going to die? He certainly can, and what he does afterward is a complete mystery to me, at least. I'm shell-shocked. See you in the one.
The next one, I guess you meant to say?
Well,
I'm glad we'll be seeing you on the next one. Yeah. Dude, I mean, I'm sorry if it feels like I stole a plot point from you. You can ask. I've had this thing planned out for a long time. Then, nah, man, I don't go around on DeviantArt all that much. So, no.
Stalks you. Just kidding. All right, Light Hero Kaiser. Wow, dark. Great chapter, mate. Can't wait for more. Wait a sec. Can't they close the wound with Todoroki's fire or something to buy some more time? Blade Hero Light's shining out.
We'll get back to you on that one, man. Yeah, that's a good idea. That's a good idea.
Well, Light Hero thanks, Blade Hero. Light Hero Kaiser. Oh, this is him again.
Yep.
Forgot to add did Kurai just use Double Sunday?
No, because he only shot the laser out of one arm, and that's the one that he lost.
Okay.
No. What was it? He pushed Bakugo out of the way with one hand. That's the one that got chopped off, and the other hand he used a laser. So, good question, but no, did not. And
Blade Hero Light signing out.
Well, thanks for your review, man.
Whoa, Silikita.
Silikita had some
wrote
things.
His own chapter here.
Good grief.
Holy beep. I can see why you were excited to get through this chapter. There's so much to cover, and I'll do my best not to go down too many rabbit trails. But
I don't know if he succeeded.
Okay, so the opening scene got some strong Naruto type dad vibes going into it in a good way, and it was really cool getting to see more of Hikari's relationship with his father. He's talked a lot about how he admires his dad, and from that interaction, I can see why. It's nice to see a good father-son relationship coming from you, especially when your characters usually seem to end up with dead parents or ones that just aren't around. Very nice change of pace. Of course, such a scene also had to mean that something heart-wrenching was coming, and I'll get to that later. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We've watched too many animes. Poor Ashido having to be worried about Hikari, but kudos to Kirishima for doing what he can to calm things down.
Yeah.
Honestly, I was expecting you to have her make a break for it. I've read several My Hero fanfics where people have her do that at this point. But having her remain in the lodge somehow upped the ante, at least. That's how I felt. Her knowing what's going on,
her not knowing
what's going on made it easier for me to feel the tension building. So nice work there. Tokuyami/Dark Shadows scene also took an unexpected turn in more than one way. Blake's tendency to run from her problems was executed very well, and I think I smell some exposition coming up on her end. Maybe. Hikari's strategy for taking down his classmate's quirk made sense, as I had just assumed that it would be a snap for him. But it does help to have... Just so you guys know, I'm so dyslexic. If you give me some spaces between those paragraphs, it'll help. But that's okay. That's okay. This is great. Thank you. Help to have a reminder every now and then that his quirk could definitely kill somebody if he makes a wrong move. It also made narrative sense to use his new ability in combat for the first time. So I seem to be saying this a lot in this review. Good job with that.
Well, thanks, dude.
Midori and Yang teaming up. Gotta say, I didn't see that one coming, but I like all of the team-ups you've had going with the American girls. It works very well. Yeah, I was surprised by that one, too. I honestly had a half second where I thought, oh, shit, he just killed her. But it's all okay. And
I'm not gonna lie, I actually thought about killing her right there. Just so I could just so I could like throw you guys off and be like, oh wait, he's not playing around when he says he's gonna kill people off. But I decided that there's some more things she needs to do.
Okay, but it's all okay, and now we don't have a Deku with Noodle for an arm. Now for the big one. I thought Moonfish was creepy enough as is, but confirming him as a cannibal in this canon made him so much worse. Hikari, yeah, dude, did you hear his audio version? Hikari being terrified. Problems. Hikari being terrified of him was another brilliant way to increase the tension because, as you've said before, there's not a lot that actually scares this guy. Makes sense that he knew about him and how. Yet, I thought so too. With him being son of a police chief, makes sense. Yet, in spite of that, he lays it all on the line and gives 110% to take the villain down. Honestly, this scene has cemented Hikari as one of my favorite characters. As Kai, and Kai is one of my favorite heroes. He has every reason to keep his head down and let others deal with Moonfish, but he didn't hesitate to put himself in danger. He despises Bakugo, he's terrified of the villain on more than one objective level, he can't even see, and he's probably more tired than any of his friends at this time. All of that, he still rises to the hero, to be the hero Bakugo needed. A standing ovation from me, Hikari. Followed by an instant jaw drop and a pit in my stomach going all the way down to the Earth's core. Yeesh. Seriously, I got chills hard enough to bring out goosebumps. And it's been a while since a story could do that to me. Nice. Most of it was due to the nature of that moment's narrative. I can absolutely feel his classmates' terror when they all realize what happened, as well as Ashido just knowing that something is wrong. Normally, I scoff at those kinds of moments, especially in fan fictions, because I find them incredibly cheesy and just a cheap effort to tug someone's heartstrings. In this case, however, it works. The way you've built up their relationship has absolutely sold me on the idea that they are in love with one another, and it makes this moment so damn gut-wrenching.
You're not the only one that thinks so, man.
Okay, he's been working on this freaking comic for months, and he keeps showing me the pictures, and I don't want to see the pictures. It's heartbreaking.
Okay.
And he wants to show everyone the pictures, and everyone's like, dude, that's really morbid. He's like, yeah, right, it's great. And I'm just like,
no. So the image that I used on the last audio chapter, that was actually the second to last one that I did. I think I can't remember if it's like 8 or 9 like pages that I've done. But so that was that one was the second to last one that I did. In this coming chapter, you're actually going to see the first one that I did as well as the very last one that I've done. I ended up doing some of them kind of out of order because I went back and forth on like whether or not I was going to draw some scenes. But you'll see what I mean later on.
Yeah, he's been like every Sunday we go to his parents' house and he's working on artwork. He's like, hey, look, guys, look what I did, and everyone's like, that's really bloody, dude.
They're not all. Why do you gotta throw me under the bus, man?
I'm not. That's just how our weeks have gone since this whole thing started. Okay.
Sorry,
if this is how Hikari dies, I'm going to be absolutely floored because what an end. I absolutely believe that you'd be capable of ending his story right here because you've been all about the unexpected in this story. That being said, I doubt this is the case. I have several reasons to believe so, but I'm running out of room in this review, so I'll just list my primary one as a gut feeling. That also
gut feelings are good, man.
Scares me because all of this emotional charge isn't what leads up to his death. I shudder to think what's going to happen to lead to that event when the time comes. That aside, I feel like there's much more to Hikari's story that you have yet to tell, but maybe that's the point. After all, when young people die, it just feels wrong on a fundamental level, doesn't it? Like that can't be it, right? But unfortunately, all too often, it is. Good point. Sorry, that got dark. I'll wrap up my review by saying, in the preview, is anything going to go by?
If the preview is anything.
If the preview is anything to go by, the kids are about to get to be so screwed. Don't believe me? Let's ask Pyrrha. Oh, wait. we can't. Cinderfall incoming.
Yeah, man.
P.S. Congratulations on breaking 200 reviews.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Silver 4700, this one's mine.
Here we go.
What? Alright, Silver 4700 says, wow, that was quite a chapter. Hikari loses an arm to Moonfish. Yang, first time. Sorry.
That was pretty good.
Nope, it's Hikari this time, not Yang.
That's right. I totally forgot about that.
Yup.
Spoilers, sorry.
It's been like 5 years since that
scene.
scene.
A long time.
Oh my god! Yeah, come on, that hardly counts as a spoiler at this point. Sorry, what was it? Okay, so Dobby says, "Huh, you managed to inflict a major and probably deadly wound on the main character. That's more impressive than those cats that became heroes." Ha! That's funny for multiple reasons. One, I get the reference. Two, we've got the Wild Wild Pussycats. They're heroes. Twice. Oh my gosh, you can see them too? That means I'm not crazy. Isn't that right, Jesus? That's right, Twice. Now, kill them all. Twice as you command my... Oh my... Twice would definitely be that guy. Twice would definitely be that guy.
He would. Okay, anyway.
Sorry. I can control it. Nope, but I'll do my best. Anyways, all things considered, you handled this pretty well. Thank you. And I'm not gonna lie, I was expecting worse. You wanted worse? I mean, with the artwork and the disclaimer, I get it. It was kind of cannibalistic, but this chapter of yours is tame compared to other ones. Like a certain Fire Emblem character where the original character does certain things to another bad character. Yeah, I was having a bad day that time. We don't talk about that anymore.
I don't want to know.
Yeah, you really don't. Let's see. What did I do? Regardless, I love how you handled both the action and emotional beats on this chapter. Really well done, and I'm going to be honest, I really want to see Mr. Compress in the next chapter. I really like him, and he's still one of my personal favorite characters. Well, you're in luck. Oh yeah, and Cinder too, I guess. Still don't know how to feel about her character in Ruby. I don't care about her character in Ruby. My best to yourself and Becca Silver. Thanks, dude. Thanks for the review.
Right.
Thank you for the laughs. I greatly enjoy.
Fun.
Last one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Fairy Sing Girl. Poor Mina. I feel bad that she can't be out there helping Kurai. I don't blame her for being worried. She just wants him to come back to her alive. And on that note, poor Kurai as well. Things suddenly aren't looking so good for him after defeating Moonfish and losing his arm in the process. I hope they're able to get him back from the camp ASAP, or back to the camp ASAP, which I have a feeling might not happen ASAP with the rest of the league of villains still nearby as well. Well, don't worry, I know the drill here. Just have to wait and find out.
Well, you don't have to wait for very long because you're about to get the next chapter right now. Be back in a minute. Jaws of the Forest. Kurai was in a state of hysterics after the defeat of Moonfish, crying, sweating in agony, his classmates all close to panic, unsure of how to deal with such a grievous wound. They had some basic first aid training, but none of them really knew what to do in the case of someone's arm getting ripped off. The limb was unsalvageable. Several of Moonfish's incisors had torn it apart in a half second before Kurai had managed to blast him. Even Bakugo, who could normally bluster his way through just about anything, seemed too rattled to know what they should do. In all reality, they realized that Kurai might just die in front of them that night. After a few moments of rapid thought, however, it was Blake that came up with an idea. "Todoroki, you need to cauterize the wound," she had said as she grabbed the heterochromic boy by the shoulder to get his attention. I can't," he said as he backed away slightly, touching the burn scar on his face as he did so. "I can't use my fire like this. The pain alone could cause his heart to give out." "He's going to die from blood loss if you don't," the girl insisted. "We don't have the equipment to make him a proper tourniquet. Plus, there's no telling what kind of diseases that psycho might have had in his teeth. If you don't do this, Hikari has no chance of making it." Todoroki had frozen, different voices warring in his head over control of his next actions. On the one hand, he might kill his friend even faster than the blood loss would. On the other, he could potentially save his life. But the burn scars might make it impossible for his nerves to be connected to any potential mechanical replacement. The group turned in surprise to see that it was Kurai who had spoken, rocking himself back and forth as he clutched desperately at the stump where his limb used to be. I can live without my arm, he groaned. Todoroki, please, get it over with. I need you to be the hero right now. He retched from the pain again, but his stomach was out of contents to eject. Please, he gasped out. Todoroki groaned to himself before he ripped off one of his sleeves and knelt in front of his friend. Bite on this, he ordered as he placed his left hand on Kurai's wound. The boy obediently allowed the fabric to be placed in his teeth, and he bit down on it firmly as he gazed at his friend with a fierce, agonized determination. When Todoroki hesitated again, Kurai nodded hurriedly, his face continuing to drain of color, as blood pumped out of the wound with every beat of his panicking heart. Todoroki closed his eyes and murmured, I'm sorry, Hikari. There was light, a smuffled scream, and the smell of burning flesh and bone. Wow, Ashido! Kirishima yelped as his classmate doubled over, clutching at her stomach and mouth. What's going on? Something's wrong, she groaned softly, her eyes unfocused as he tried to get her to look back up at him. Kirishima, something's happened to Kurai. What's going on? Vlad King asked gruffly as he started over to look down at the girl. Is she sick? Aizawa had run out of the room and left him in charge of protecting them and any of the other students that made it back to the base camp while he tried to rendezvous with the other pussycats. No, I don't think... Whoosh! The door blasted down behind Vlad to admit a wall of scorching blue flames that were hot enough to take everyone's breath away as they dove away from the entrance. In response, Vlad unleashed crystallized blood to protect the students behind him. Mina and Kirishima were a little further back in the room, so they were out of the direct line of fire, but they also were more of a target for whoever had attacked them. Said person didn't take long to come through the door, and he looked like something out of a nightmare. It would have been easier to count the parts of his skin that weren't horribly disfigured by the burned tissue, not to mention that he seemed to have grafted the burnt flesh to what remained of the healthy skin with multiple body piercings, and he had dark, spiky hair that barely veiled burning blue eyes that matched his flames. A Cheshire grin stretched his face as he leveled a palm at Mina and Kirishima before he said in a voice drier than sandpaper, Poor little wannabes. If only there was a real hero around to protect you. He sent a roaring pillar of fire from his hands that would surely reduce them to ash, even with Vlad charging at him from the side. Mina went to counter the attack with her acid, hoping to snuff out the fire. But Kirishima beat her to the punch. I got your real hero right here! He shouted as he hardened himself as much as he possibly could, while spreading his body out to keep Mina from being touched by the vicious flames. For just a second, Mina thought the heat wave was playing tricks on her already blurred eyes, but it certainly looked as though her old friend had taken on the appearance of a living rock, one that weathered the fireball and came out a little singed, but with nothing in the way of a permanent injury. Before either of them could move to counterattack, Vlad had grabbed the villain and slammed him against the wall while trapping him in another barrier of crystallized blood. You okay? Kirishima asked Mina, who nodded in a bit of a daze. Yeah, she mumbled. You? Behind them, Vlad was beginning to interrogate the villain, so they assumed that he would have everything handled on that end. Better than I expected, actually. He laughed as he scratched his now frizzy hair. Dumb villains made a mistake thinking they could just walk in and take us down. Yeah, maybe. Mina said as she suppressed another shudder of bone-chilling nausea. Maybe. What happened? We should be asking you that. Midoriya had arrived on the scene, having been drawn toward the sound of combat from earlier. He'd been stunned to see Kurai unconscious and minus an arm, while Todoroki had turned his outer shirt into a rough bandage to protect the now burnt flesh and staunch the blow of the blood flow that had persisted due to the severity of the original injury. Now he stood among them with one arm broken by Muscular's attack and the other by his own quirk, looking in a right state that made some of his friends wonder why on earth he had come out after them. I went to rescue Koda and ended up fighting a villain, the boy said, sounding out of breath. Xiaolong helped me out, and she was injured, but I was able to meet up with Mr. Aizawa and passed Koda on to him while I came to look for Kachan. Wait, you saw Yang? Blake asked as she stumbled to her feet unsteadily. Is she okay? We were both hurt fighting a villain, but she dealt him a finishing blow, he answered her. She decided to stay behind because she took a hit so that it would be easier for the pros to find her later. Mr. Aizawa said he was going to bring her back as soon as he made sure the coda was safe, but she seemed relatively okay when I left her. With barely a moment of pause, he asked, I take it that the villains already came after Kachan? They haven't gotten to him yet, Shoji said as they looked at the blonde student, who grit his teeth angrily. Stop worrying about me, damn it! He snarled. Saiyaman's the one who needs help! Seriously, how did he end up like this? Midoriya panted. We'll explain on the way, Todoroki said before another exchange could get started. He moved to pick up the unconscious Class B student as he added, Bakugo is right. Hikari needs urgent medical treatment as soon as possible. He's not bleeding out anymore, but he's lost plenty to begin with. Not to mention what the shock of this has to be doing to his body. Shoji, can you carry him with your hand like it is? Of course. The larger boy said as he moved to scoop up the insensate teenager. You can rely on me. We should cut back through the woods, Midoriya said, his mind having successfully switched to analytical mode in spite, or perhaps because, of the situation. The Pussycats might still be fighting the villains at the gathering point for the test, and it's longer of a route. We should cut straight through. What if we run into another villain like the one who did this? Blake said with a shudder as she actively tried not to look at where Kurai's arm had gone to rest among the roots of a tree. We blast him to hell, Bakugo snarled as he sparked his palms ominously. We have Kachan and Todoroki, plus Tokoyami's Dark Shadow, Midoriya pointed out. He's more powerful in the dark anyway, right? Yes, but he's nearly impossible to control without a source of light, the bird-headed student replied with a shake of his head. Hikari brought me under control earlier, but that's obviously not going to happen a second time. Will my flames suffice? Todoroki asked as he stepped away from Kurai and Shoji. Probably. Then we move out, and we move fast, Midoriya asserted. We've got to get Kachan away from the villains and Hikari to a hospital. The best way to do both of those things is to go back to the base as fast as possible. Hopefully we run into some of the others along the way and add them to our numbers so we can protect them. I don't need... Bakugo started to shout, but then his voice faltered as he looked at the grass behind him, which had been stained red. Before anyone could ask him what he was talking about, he growled, Let's go. Saiyaman's not going to get any better with us just standing around and making plans. Hey up! Ruby shouted as she delivered a high-speed kick to the head of the masked, knife-wielding girl who had swiftly emerged from the woods to slash at Ochako. The swift blow sent her tumbling down the path, away from the two of them, and giving the younger girl a chance to formulate an idea. Hey, Uraraka! The American called over without taking her eyes off their enemy, who was already staggering to her feet in spite of the hit she had just taken. Can you make one of these trees float without affecting the ground underneath it? I should be able to. Why? The other girl panted as she grabbed at her arm. I have an idea. Just pick a good-sized one and let me know when it's done, Ruby replied as she blurred into a storm of rose petals that surrounded their attacker. Okay. Ooh. The girl within the storm giggled as her golden eyes widened at the sight around her. It's the same color as blood. Red like roses and blood is so pretty, isn't it? Tilting her head upwards, she then said, I know Chaco's name, but I don't know who you are. What's your name, huh? I'm Himiko Toga, by the way. Nice to know the poster girl of Crazyville's name, Ruby called out sarcastically as she focused on maintaining a dispersed form, having seen Toga's arsenal of knives and needles on her outfit. If she starts throwing those, it's going to be tough to keep myself from getting hit somewhere or another, she thought tiredly. Rose, I've got it! Ochako suddenly called out, and Ruby reacted by heading toward her friend's voice, dissipating the cyclone of wind and petals as she reformed next to the injured girl, who had placed her fingers on the bark of a middling-sized tree and was now looking confused. Now what? The roots are still buried, so it's not like I can use it as a weapon. Not with that attitude, Ruby said with a grin as she took a running stance. Normally I do this with my scythe, but your quirk will make it 100 times easier. Do what? Ochako asked as she eyed Toga, who was now making a swift approach with a large needle and knife in each hand. This! With another burst of violent wind, Ruby shoulder-checked the tree and ripped it out of the ground, roots and all, before she used her speed to fashion a funnel of wind that hurled the tree at Toga, who had stopped in place with a look of alarm on her face. The American girl then shot out of her own wind funnel and got behind Toga just long enough to kick her square in the back and put her in the path of the slipstream that was bringing the tree to crash into her less than a second later. When the wind stopped and the dust had settled, there was a perplexed-looking toga underneath a tree trunk positioned just so that it wouldn't kill her from the crushing weight, but it wasn't going to allow her to move around without a lot of help either. "This is a first," the blonde villainess said blankly. "Normally I'm the one who leads with this when I want to get to know someone." "Yeah," Ruby panted, the extensive use of her quirk over the course of the day having caught up with her again. "How's that worked out for you so far?" "Well, I can't say that I've had a lot of friends," Toga giggled, "but the ones I did have I knew really, really well." Something about the way she included the past tense made the two students feel as though they didn't want to learn any more about this villain than they absolutely needed to. "Should we knock her out?" Uraraka asked as she moved closer to her classmate, still impressed by how quickly she had taken down their assailant. She released her gravikinetic hold on the tree the second that she had seen the toga was trapped, so she felt somewhat safer at the moment. "I was starting to wonder if she has some kind of resiliency quirk, because I totally thought that she would have been KO'd by the tree," Ruby admitted. "Either way, I'm thinking a big rock would be nice right about now." "I don't see one of those," Uraraka shrugged helplessly. "Can't you just use your quirk to hit her real fast?" "I would, but I'm honestly too tired to try anything for another minute. I don't want to kill her on accident," Ruby replied, giving both of the other girls pause. Seeing this, she explained, "My quirk is super hard to control, so if I'm tired and I slip up, I could end up putting a crater in the force from the impact. Not to mention that Miss Crazy Pants and I would probably end up in pieces everywhere." "Can't you just move one part of your body super fast to avoid that?" Ochako asked, stunned by the amount of power that Ruby apparently possessed. The younger girl immediately shook her head in the negative as she said, "My quirk affects my whole body at once, so I can't just use it on one part or another like that. It's part of why it's so hard to get a hang of, you know?" "That's so nice of you to share everything like that." Toga laughed before Ochako was tackled to the ground and a large needle was jammed into her leg. It happened so quickly that even Ruby was confused as to what just happened, but somehow Toga was now straddling the other girl and siphoning her blood into a metal container that rested on her back. Seeing the look of shock on Ruby's face, she smiled eerily and said, "Don't worry your pretty head, Rosie. You'll get your chance to know me soon enough." "Rosie!" Ruby sputtered as she took an unarmed combat stance. "You know what? Get off my friend!" "Can't do that," Toga giggled. "And you can't make me, not without risking a mess of blood, right? Oh, that would be so pretty." "This chick looks like she gets off just talking about blood," Ruby thought as her tired mind raced, trying to figure out a way to get this toga off of her classmate without causing major injury to Uraraka. Toga's smile widened as she leaned closer to her captive's head and whispered, "You know, you smell like I do. You've got a crush on someone, don't you?" "Huh?" Both Ochako and Ruby froze, utterly boggled at how Toga's mind could possibly be making a connection between bleeding someone out and having a crush. "I know the look," Toga went on, apparently unaware of her target's reactions. "You start to admire someone, and then you start wanting to be like them, you know? But after a while, you start to realize it isn't enough. You want to start actually become them. Right, Ochako?" "Get off of her!" A familiar voice echoed out of the darkness of the trees right before a long leg shot out and sent Toga tumbling away from her prey, followed by the owner calling out, "Ruby, you okay?" "Blake!" The younger girl cried out in relief as her teammate interposed herself between them and their enemy, with several of the other students coming up behind her. "Who's that girl?" Todoroki grunted as he slid to a stop alongside Blake, the air around him dropping several degrees as he readied his ice. To their surprise, Toga made a sulking face and said, "Too many people now. I don't feel like getting killed tonight." With a small shrugging motion, she sheathed her blades and started to walk away with the farewell word, "Toodles." She did pause for just a second as she looked over her shoulder with what looked like a blush before she vanished into the dark of the trees with another disturbing giggle. As soon as she was gone, Ruby ran over to her friends with the words, "Thank goodness. We heard the announcement and then that crazy chick showed up." Her mouth paused, hanging open as she saw the state that Midoriya and Kurai were in, and Uraraka didn't do much better. "Deku!" she cried out as she started to limp toward them, her leg having been freed of the needle, though a small puncture wound continued to trickle blood while she moved. "What happened to you?" "God, Hikari!" "We don't have time to waste on lengthy explanations," Todoroki said grimly as he beckoned for Uraraka to come to Kurai and the other unconscious student. "Make these two float with your quirks so we can move faster. The sooner he gets medical attention, the better." "Of course," she said, though she still looked nauseated by the sight of his missing arm and pale body. Shifting her look toward the others, she asked, "What are you all doing out here? I thought we were all in separate groups." "Hikari and I decided to try and find others like us in the forest once we heard Miss Mandelay's voice," Blake answered honest tonelessly. We met up with these guys and decided to stick together to protect Bakugo and Hikari after he was seriously wounded. We're all headed for the base camp. Blake? Ruby asked as she looked at Uraraka, who had just used zero gravity on Hikari, making it easier for Shoji to carry him. If you guys are protecting Bakugo, shouldn't he be somewhere you can protect him? You know, like, close by? What? Midoriya chuckled awkwardly as he turned right around. He's right here. A thrill of alarm went through everyone as they realized that Bakugo was indeed nowhere to be seen. Where did he go? Blake demanded of no one in particular. Terribly sorry about that. A new voice called from the treetops, drawing their gazes upward toward a masked man with a feathered top hat. With the history of being a performer, my flair for the melodramatic should hardly come as a surprise to those who know me. However, since you do not, I shall introduce myself as Compress, master magician and escape artist. With a click of his fingers, half a tree disappeared, and a small marble appeared in the palm of his hand. I used a touch of magic to gather up Bakugo, as so we may have a discussion about his future in a more relaxed environment than a burning forest. Tokoyami reacted first out of the group. Todoroki, get ready. He snarled as his eyes gleamed in the darkness that began to come alive around him. Dark Shadow! The writhing beast roared as it was granted release from its master's body and shot forward, rushing for what would possibly be a killing blow against Compress. Before it could make the connection, however, a blast of fire drove it back in time for the villain to begin making his escape. Seeing this, everyone turned to Todoroki while Tokoyami shouted urgently, No, not yet! It wasn't me! The heterochromic boy protested. I'd stay right where you are, if I were all of you. Another new voice said as a slender shadow began to emerge from the tree line. If you value the life of your wounded comrade as much as a hero should, you'll do well to allow Mr. Compress to escape. Wounded comrade? Tokoyami repeated as his shadow withdrew into his body. What is she? Guys, where's Hikari? Shoji asked as he looked at his now empty hands. He was just right here. Huh? Oh, children, the shadowy figure said as they came to stand in the moonlight. She turned out to be a young woman, probably in her early 20s, with long black hair that veiled most of her face, allowing only a single amber eye to look at them with a strange intensity. As she stepped into plain view, she held up a black gloved hand to display a small marble, identical to the ones that Compress had been showing off earlier. I believe this is what you're looking for. Damn it! Todoroki swore as he and the others prepared for combat, knowing that if they didn't resolve this quickly, they would lose any chances at rescuing Bakugo from the other villain. The woman said with a slow shake of her head as she waved her free hand and engulfed an adjacent tree in flames. By the time the young heroes realized that she was the one who had driven back Dark Shadow, the tree had been reduced to a pile of embers that their new enemy then extinguished. I promise not to do the same to your friend if you stay where you are and behave. Move to attack me and you'll lose both your friends. Why should we believe that? Ruby demanded hotly. You're just going to kill him no matter what we do. Perhaps, perhaps not. The woman said, her tone and mannerisms completely unhurried, as if she were having a leisurely chat with strangers about the weather. Not everyone in Shigaraku's groups think as I do, but there are a few of us who fight for more than destruction for destruction's sake. What the hell does that mean? Midoriya shouted at her, obviously aching to chase after his comrade, but being unable to do so for fear of Kurai's life. The villains obviously wanted Bakugo alive, so his life was in no immediate danger, but their crippled friend was another matter altogether. Now that it was clear that it was the League pulling the strings for the assault, they all knew that the crazed leader of the gang would dearly love to see Kurai killed for his hand in their defeat at the USJ. They had no doubt that whatever this woman was saying, she wouldn't hesitate to terminate their friend if it suited her. There are some in the underworld, myself included, who believe in ideologies of the hero killer, she said now, causing Midoriya and Todoroki to exchange a worried look. Before a field can be sown, the soil must be torn up and reshaped, yes? The hero world has become mired in stagnation and hypocrites who become public champions for the acclaim it gives them and no other reason. Something I'm sure you can understand, yes, little Todoroki? The heterochromic boy's eyes narrowed before he said in his voice, as sharp as an icicle, Leave my father out of this. He has nothing to do with you holding my friend hostage. The woman smiled ominously as she bounced the marble in the palm of her hand. In any case, it has become apparent to those of us in the shadows who sympathize with Stain that the time has come for the current status quo to be torn up and remade into a field ready to receive a new era. What is she talking about? Ochako asked nervously. Who is this woman? Pardon my rudeness, the woman said with a mocking inclination of her head. I am Cinderfall, member of the League of Villains and follower of the hero killer. So these are the kinds of people that lunatics stirred up, huh? Todoroki muttered angrily. Are not revolutions started by those that the current society perceives to be madmen? Cinder smirked. I intend to make good use of Bakugo's power and temperament. Honestly, who among you thought that he could actually be a hero? He'll be a menace no matter what path he chooses in life. At least with us, he'll have a chance to be a useful menace. She looked as though she were about to add more, but then her head suddenly exploded into a mud-like substance as Blake's fist emerged from behind her, and her shadow image vanished from next to Tokoyami. The rest of her body was quick to dissolve before the startled student's eyes, leaving behind the pale blue marble that contained their wounded peer. What was that? The bird-headed boy asked as he bent down and retrieved the marble. I thought she had a fire quirk. He thought that he could just make something out like a reflection of their friend inside the warm little ball, but with the waning moonlight, he couldn't be sure. He just hoped it meant that Kurai really was in there, and that they might be able to get him out. We'll have to figure it out later, Midoriya said hurriedly. Obviously, they were stalling to let the other guy get away. We gotta catch up if we're gonna get to Kachan in time. I'm going on ahead, Ruby declared, only to be stopped by Blake, leading her to ask, What? Going alone would be worse than stupid, the older girl said tightly. Can you take me with you? Yeah, but it'll be a rough landing. I don't care. We gotta get that guy out before he gets away with whoever else is out there, Blake told her. Without him, who knows how we're gonna get Hikari out of the marble. Guys, go! Midoriya begged them. We'll catch up as soon as we can. Right, Ruby said as she grabbed Blake around her waist while putting herself under the other girl's left arm. See you guys soon. With that, they were gone in a rush of wind and rose petals, leaving the others to try and formulate a plan that would allow them to provide backup in time to prevent the villain's escape. Twice, Dabi, compressed. Do you read me? The villains being addressed paused as I stood amid the darkening woods while the taller of the two reached up and tapped the comm piece lodged in his ear. We copy, Sender, he said. What's going on? My clone was defeated and 2 of the hero kids are closing in on compress, the woman answered. Last I checked, they were pretty close to where you are. Those kids are pretty persistent, Twice muttered. He then perked up and yelled out, Oh, are you kidding? I expected Compress to get carried away with his showboating, but how'd you let a bunch of kids get the drop on you? Save it. We need to be at the extraction point in the next few minutes, or else... Dabi was suddenly cut off by the sound of howling winds, snapping branches, and a high-pitched girl's voice shouting, Give us back our friends or I'm gonna lose it! The next thing Dabi knew, he was tasting dirt and blood in his mouth. Ruby and Blake had caught sight of the villain calling himself Compress easily enough, as the orange in his suit clashed with the color of the blue flames illuminating the forest as he leaped from tree to tree. The younger heroine had then cut the brakes on her quirk, substituting the amazing control that allowed her to use her quirk so effectively for raw power that sent her and her friend on a brutal collision course with the man, knocking him out of the air and sending him plummeting to the ground. As it just so happened, this was the spot where Dabi and Twice were stopped, putting them right in the line of fire when Ruby body slammed Compress, and Blake wound up getting tangled with the villain dressed in the gray and black bodysuit. Ow! The man cried as he stumbled to his feet. What's the big idea, lady? As soon as he was steady, he narrowed his eyes at Blake and muttered, These are 2 of the students who weren't at UA last semester. They're more capable than we gave them credit for. Meanwhile, Dabi was more or less out of the fight due to the blow he had suffered to the head, and Ruby was now punching Compress in the stomach repeatedly. Give them back, give them back, give them back! She kept shouting as the man tried in vain to throw her off. Apparently, Ruby was stronger than her small frame would suggest. Scoundrel of a girl! He coughed out in between her strikes. He was also trying to use his quirk on her, but he couldn't gather his thoughts well enough to make use of his powers. Hey, get up, Compress! Twice shouted as he tried to make a dive at Ruby, only to have Blake strike him in the head. He tried to get back at her by using some kind of flexible tape metal that came from his wrists, and was shown to be razor sharp when it sliced through some tree branches without any physical hesitation. The only reason Blake wasn't dead the second that it connected with her stomach was because she managed to substitute an afterimage to take the hit for her. Just as she was about to deliver a knockout punch to Twice's jaw, a blast of blue fire drove her back, and drew her attention back to Dabi, who was now back on his feet. Evidently, he was quick to recover, even from a hit like Ruby's. Stand down, heroes, the scarred young man said flatly as he aimed a palm at the younger girl, who froze in place. Or I'll turn both of you into ashes. Blake cursed inwardly. She was just as tired as Ruby, and it was getting hard for her to produce the shadow clones and mirages that helped her to confuse her opponents. Now they were outnumbered, and she had no idea when reinforcements would arrive. If only I had my gun. Fortunately, help arrived sooner than expected. With a collective yell, Todoroki, Shoji, Tokoyami, and Midoriya crashed into Dabi in a manner similar to how Ruby had done only moments prior, and this time it seemed as though he wouldn't be getting up for a while. Using Uraraka's zero gravity and Todoroki's fire, the group had managed to follow the American girls and could now provide relief. Todoroki immediately sent a barrage of ice at Twice, putting a defensive wall between him and Blake in the time that it takes a person to blink. "Are you okay?" he called over. "I'm fine, but don't let that guy get in close," she warned him. "He has some kind of tape blades in his wrists." "Is that his quirk?" "I don't think so. It seems like a support item." While this was happening, the others had decided to focus on getting what they wanted from the man who had trapped their friends. "Give Kachan back!" Midoriya yelled as he glared at Compress, who now looked very frightened, especially for someone wearing a full-face mask. "Give him back?" The beaten man laughed nervously. "What an odd thing to say. Bakugo doesn't belong to anyone. He's his own person." He was cut off as Ruby slugged him in the stomach again. Tokoyami then moved in closer and glared down at the man with contempt as he said, "What happens next is your choice, fiend. Either you release our comrades willingly from their prisons, or I let Dark Shadow out to let you use you as a plaything." If it were possible to sweat through ceramic, Compress was doing it now. "Let's not do anything hasty," he started to say, only to have Tokoyami's beak twist into a scowl. All right! He flicked the marble from his sleeve and caught it between his fingers. Before Ruby could grab it, however, he threw it away from himself as hard as he could, causing the students to all shout in alarm and charge in the direction of the discarded marble. With a snap of his fingers, Compress released his hold on the two marbles, with one spitting out Kurai onto the ground behind Shoji, who immediately moved to stand over him in a protective manner. The other marble, however, released a large chunk of Todoroki's ice, leaving the lot of them bewildered at what just happened. "First trick of a magician's trade is sleight of hand." Compress coughed as he got to his feet. "Pardon me. I had the thought that you might prove to be a bit much for me to handle, so I took the time to prepare a couple of decoys." As he spoke, Dabi walked out from behind Todoroki's ice wave, and stood over another Dabi, the one that the boys had knocked unconscious during their entrance. What?" Ruby demanded. "Nice trick, ain't it?" Twice called down from atop the ice. "No matter how many of you there are, I can outnumber you in seconds." "Stop bragging, Twice," the conscious Dabi ordered. "We've got our hands full, and I'm not as durable as my original." "My apologies," the other villain said, followed by the words, "Up yours, Pyro! You should be bowing down and worshipping me as your god! You wouldn't even exist without me!" "What is with this guy?" Shoji muttered as they eyed him warily. "I don't know. My guess is that he has something to do with the duplicate villain," Midoriya answered, cringing as his arms flared angrily in pain. "It doesn't matter," Todoroki reminded them. "We still have to retrieve Bakugo, and now we gotta deal with the other guys." "Don't forget me," a familiar voice said, accompanied by Cinder's appearance from behind the ice wall. "And me," chirped Toga as she skipped out from behind some trees. "The good news just keeps coming," Blake grumbled. "Kill them all," Dabi ordered the others. "Go for the injured kid first." The following fight was short but furiously intense. Wounds were dealt to both sides, with no clear winner emerging by the end of it. The students had a slight numbers advantage, but they were all exhausted from the day's training, and Midoriya was already badly injured, not to mention they had to protect Kurai, who was still unconscious and slowly losing blood, even in spite of the bandages and burned tissue. The blood-crazy girl Toga seemed disturbingly fixated on the wounded boy, though Izuku also held her attention for a few moments. Things finally came to a head when the portal villain, Kurogiri, appeared in order to spirit away his colleagues, who still had Bakugo in their possession. Compress was about to step through a warp gate, but a sparkling laser shot at him from nearby a clump of bushes and struck him across the face, destroying the mask and nearly knocking him down in the process. At first, everyone thought that Kurai might have recovered enough to get in a surprise attack, but it turned out to be Aoyama, who had been hiding nearby with an unconscious Jiro and Hagakure, waiting for the right moment to strike. His gambit nearly worked, but the arrival of a Nomu served to drive the heroes back long enough for Compress to release Bakugo from the marble, so the Dabi could grab him by the throat and drag him through the portal to God only knew where. As the villains began to make their escape, Toga told the heroes that Kurai could expect to meet her again. Properly, next time, she assured them. Izuku screamed his desperation as he tried to reach out for his friend, but in the end, Bakugo told him to stay away. Then the portals closed, and the teenagers were left with the aching wounds and the agony of defeat. As Midoriya cried in pain and sorrow, Todoroki could only stare down at Kurai's bloodied stump with the thought, He sacrificed so much for someone who hates him, and it was for nothing. The hero students had mostly congregated back at the cabin, and were talking among themselves in lowered, worried tones, wondering what had become of their missing friends when the medical teams began to arrive, which consisted of a handful of ambulances and a helicopter. Several kids who had been poisoned were taken in the ambulances, while others with lighter wounds were treated by the EMTs on site. Kirishima was given some treatment for superficial burns that he had sustained during the Flame Villain's attack, but he was a lot better off than some of the others, such as Yayurozu, who had been brought in by Awase of Class B with a severe head injury. Mina was with him to keep him company when they heard shouts of surprise coming closer to the trees. Fearing another villain attack and without a clear line of sight, the students braced themselves for another fight, but Aizawa waved them all back as he ran across the open area. "What's going on?" Kirishima called out. "Everyone calm down," Ida shouted to be heard above the noise as the EMT personnel followed the erasure hero. "It's just the other students returning. There's no danger." This filled them all with a measure of relief, Mina in particular, whose shoulders sagged as she released a breath that she didn't realize she had been holding. "Well, that's good." Kirishima laughed as he sat back down on the steps that had been occupying. Turning to his friend, he added, "Told you there's nothing to worry about. Hikaru's going to be here as soon as the med teams finish examining him." "Yeah," she said with a wobbly smile. "Thank God." Just as she had said this, however, there was a shout of alarm from one of the medics, and the people who had been remaining on standby at the helicopter surged forward, shouting for everyone to clear the way. Seeing this, Kirishima frowned and turned to ask Kaminari what was happening, since he had a slightly better view of proceedings than they did. "Not totally sure, but it looks like Midoriya busted himself up pretty bad," the electric boy cringed. "They might be airlifting him." "Do you see Kurai?" Mina asked worriedly. "No. Wait, yeah," the blonde boy nodded. They're putting him on a stretcher, and it looks like there's blood on his shirt." Just like that, Mina's stomach dropped again, and she clambered to her feet as she asked, "How bad is it?" "I can't tell from this distance, but it looks like the EMTs are freaking out," Kaminari said as he paled a few shades. "Yeah, a lot of them look pretty worried." "I gotta get over there," Mina said as she started forward, only to be blocked by another medic. "Sorry, kid," she said with a shake of her head. "We gotta let them do their job without interference." "Please, ma'am, that's my boyfriend," Mina begged. "I won't get in the way. I just want to know what's going on." The woman hesitated before she pulled up her radio and asked, "Aiko, what's the status of their wounded on your end? My hands are free if you need assistance." "Yes, please," the other person said, sounding rushed. "We're airlifting a student in critical condition, and we need help with the others who have been wounded." The woman held up a hand to forestall any movements from Mina while saying, "Can you please verify the ID of the student in critical condition? I've got family concerned about the status of..." She looked at the students pointedly, prompting Kirishima to speak quickly. "Kurai Hikari, ma'am. A student named Hikari." There was a pause before Aiko said, "Yes, it's Hikari. Tell the family we'll be airlifting him to Hosu General. No passengers." "I'm on my way." The woman nodded as she started to move. Over her shoulder, she said, "You heard him. No passengers. Sorry, but that's all I can do for you. You need to stay put." "But..." "Ashido, you heard her," Kirishima said as he and Kaminari moved to prevent the pink girl from chasing after the woman. Even in spite of the worry on his face, the redhead gave her a smile and said, "He's tough. Whatever happens, I'm sure he'll pull through." "Dude's tougher than any of us," Kaminari agreed. "Ashido," a familiar voice called from up ahead, causing the three of them to turn around. "Is Ashido around here?" "Todoroki?" Kirishima called out. "Is that you, man?" "Ashido's over here." There was a bustling of movement that ended when a familiar mop of red and white hair shoved his way through the throng of students. He looked tired and dirty, but there were no visible injuries, which is probably how he was able to slip past the EMTs so quickly, Kirishima thought. "Hey man, what's going on? The medics were saying that..." "What happened to Kurai?" Mina interrupted as she stepped closer to the heterochromic boy. "She said that he's in critical condition." Her eyes were wide and she was clearly close to panic. Todoroki looked at her with defeated eyes before he said, "Kaminari, Kirishima, can you give us a minute?" Once they had moved to do as he asked, as well as turn away any of the other students who wanted to know what was going on from the boy, he stepped a little closer to Mina and said, "I'm sorry, Ashido. Hikari is alive, but we couldn't protect him. He's..." The young man faltered, an uncharacteristic catch in his throat as he looked into Mina's watering eyes. "What happened, Todoroki? Why is Kurai being taken away so fast that I can't even go check on him?" Her voice was quavering, and he could see just how close she was to her breakdown, how much she had been worrying about him this whole time. And now this? He thought despondently. Even so, he knew that she needed to hear what had happened, no matter how much it hurt him to admit just how badly they had been defeated. So he drew in a breath and said, "We encountered a violent villain in the forest. We tried to defeat him together, but he was too persistent, and in the end, only Hikari had the strength to take him down before he killed Bakugo, but it cost him. It all happened so fast that Todoroki hesitated one last time before he made himself tell the truth. The villain cut off most of his right arm. He lost a lot of blood before His eyes wandered down to his left hand and shuddered, and he was barely able to say, "We slowed the bleeding down, but that was all I could do. I'm sorry, Ashido." He looked ready to cry, which was shocking enough on its own, but Mina hardly even noticed that. All she could see at the end of her tunnel vision was Kurai, having finally been given a clear line of sight as they loaded him into the helicopter, covered in blood and pale enough to resemble a corpse. Her leg muscles tensed up in preparation to run after him, forget what any of the medical professionals had told her. She needed to get to him, to Ashido. She felt a familiar presence beside her, one that had often been accompanied by a restraining scarf over the last few days, but not this time. All Aizawa did was lay a firm hand on her shoulder and say, "There's nothing you can do for him, and I can't have you causing a scene now, of all times. I'm sorry. But I'll make sure that you're one of the first people to see him at the hospital, even if I have to drive you myself," the scruffy man said to cut her off. "I'm sure that seeing you will do him some good. He's going to need all the good he can get in the days to come. For now, I'll ask that you be patient, just like everyone else." When he was sure that she wasn't about to run after the boy, who was now in a helicopter with whirring blades, Aizawa moved away to speak with Vlad and Mandalay, the latter of whom looked incredibly worried. As the aerial vehicle began to take off, buffeting those nearby with gusts of wind, Mina nearly fell over, her body having stopped responding to her commands, only to be caught up by someone much taller than she. "Ida?" she asked dumbly, still feeling as though her limbs were weighted with lead. She noticed with only the barest interest that the class rep was crying freely as he helped her to sit down. "Can't have you hurting yourself," he said in a shaky voice. "Kurai would never forgive me if you got hurt while I was around." At long last, Mina began to weep and groan out her grief, and as she did, Ida joined her in her misery and fear as they both hoped and prayed that their dear friend would live. "He has to live," she thought as she held on to Ida with an unreasoning desperation. "I can't imagine this world without Kurai in it."
So, I'm not gonna lie, I actually originally wasn't gonna even do this chapter. And I say that because, this is Kurai's story, and I've stressed this multiple times. But, that being said, I felt that I had introduced enough new characters to the narrative that, not a filler, but an not even a chapter that
They
didn't...
needed some time to shine.
They needed some time to shine. A chapter that didn't feature Hikari as the main show. I came to the decision that a chapter like that was finally in order. If that does happen again, it'll be very far and few in between. Like I said before, this is his story. I almost didn't do this chapter because he hardly has any part in it. He's just getting lugged around. He's unconscious. He gets taken as a hostage. And I easily could have covered that in a summary paragraph in another chapter, which is what I had originally planned to do. But then I was like, no, there's some more things to be had here, and there were a couple of, and as I started working on the chapter, I was like, no, there's some emotional moments that need to be had in here, and I'd like to think that I did well with them.
Yeah, so we open with everyone kind of freaking out.
Kinda.
Todoroki knows he needs to do it, but he's still very emotionally scarred and physically scarred from
Sensor
burns.
beams only heal physical damage.
Yeah. So you scared Ochako. She's leaving.
No, she's changing.
It's your fault. But like you said, because Hikari asked him.
I knew that from what I know of Todoroki's character, at least at this point, it's unless Kurai was the one asking him to save him, there was no way Todoroki would be able to bring himself to do it. And Kurai definitely would have died right there if he hadn't. Mm-hmm. If he hadn't been able to. Yeah. No, Hikari's he's in not great shape. Yeah, yeah.
So we have cauterizes the wound, passes out from the pain, but the action's not over.
Oh, not even
It's
close.
barely starting.
Yep. Moonfish was just the opening act. Yeah, and like stuff is still happening all over the place. Like got Mina like back at the lodge. She's like, she knows something's happening. She's like trying not to be sick. And then Dobby shows up, tortures the crap out of the place. But I was like, hey, let's throw a little Kirishima moment in here. Of being awesome, because Kirishima's great. Kirishima's great.
Like block of the fire.
I was like, let's give him let's give him an early unbreakable moment. Let's go. Maybe that was a little bit on the fan servicey side for me, but I thought it was well deserved. And Kirishima's a great guy. If anybody deserved it, he did.
Yeah.
And then Vlad beats the stuffing out of Dobby's clone, and that's that. No wait, it's Aizawa that beats the stuffing out of him later, but that's not important right now. So, like, we kind of keeping track of the students. They're all over the place. I got to throw in a Red Like Roses reference.
Yeah.
through Crazy Blood Girl.
Yeah, Ruby gets a good...
kick-assery moment.
Yeah, as Masako would say.
Yeah.
And so we get Little Miss Nasty pinned under a tree for a little bit while they, like...
It's like, like... One of the things that I enjoyed doing about that was, like, I tried... I had you... What's that?
Nothing.
What?
Oh, it's just a slang.
Okay. One of the things I enjoyed about writing that scene was that it gave me an opportunity to expand a little bit more on how I have Ruby's quirk work in this world as opposed to her semblance in the original. So, like, I've done this before with Blake in the previous chapters. Like, in the original Ruby material, Blake can't make shadow clones and like have them act independent of one another. That's something that I came up with because I felt like it was more in keeping with them trying to develop their powers specifically. And with this one, I did as much research as I could on Ruby's powers before I started writing this, and I couldn't find anything that told me that she would be able to move one part of her body any faster than the other. So I decided to kind of make that part of her quirks like drawbacks, is that she has to activate it in her whole body. She can't just turn it on in one part or another, which just adds to the narrative. This just adds to the narrative of like, wow, she's had to work really hard to control this. But that was just that was a fun little aspect of it. Get to see both Blake and Ruby kick the crap out of her, out of Toga. Toga gives me the creeps, man. I don't know why so many people are into her.
I know people love her, but she's freaking scary.
Yeah, man. Under no circumstances. Well,
no.
If I had to choose between meeting Shigaraki and meeting Toga, I would probably meet Shigaraki.
Oh yeah, hands down.
Hands down.
He's way cooler. Sorry. Even with the scratching.
Yeah.
Ooh, they're both so creepy.
No. Never mind. I don't want to meet either of them.
I know the.
Oh no. Something to note with Toga though is that like while she's like later on while she still notices Deku, Kurai's like bleeding way the hell out, and that's her thing. So
yeah, she's.
So he's gonna have to. So if he survives, he's gonna have to watch out for. Yeah. Mina better keep a close eye on him.
Yeah. Hey, she didn't get a blood sample from Mina though.
She didn't get a blood sample from Mina. She still got it from Ochako. Yeah. That's true.
Yeah.
So. Yeah. So who knows how that'll play on down the line. What was I gonna say? So, following that, so they're still able to drive her away. And while they're trying to get their crap together, Bakugo still disappears. Now, when I was first writing this, I was like, all right, and this is the part where he takes up Tokoyami, and I'm like, wait, no, this is not the part where he takes up Tokoyami. Here's the reason why. In the original, Compress noticed how fast Tokoyami took down Moonfish, who, like, even the other league people were like, oh man, yeah, this guy's bad news. Tokoyami's boom, Moonfish is down. They didn't see that because Tokoyami didn't want to let out Dark Shadow on the off chance that he would attack his friends, because Kurai was able to get him under control earlier in the story. So, instead, that's what leads Kurai to taking him out. Now, Compress takes Kurai captive, but not for the same reason. See, like, they would have done their homework on Kurai. It's like, there's no way this guy's ever going to become a villain. Like, there's, like, nothing about him says, hey, this guy might be villain material, unlike Bakugo. But he still would still serve them well as a hostage, which allows me to enter Cinder Fall, which I think she's a really cool villain. I think she's got a really cool design, and I think that I like to think that I handled her entry pretty well. Like, I don't think I did anything that was like out of character for her. Like,
It worked.
I mean, yeah, like she, despite the fire quirk, she's surprisingly cool. Sorry, bad jokes. Sorry, what was I gonna say? I thought about having her like be one of the people that just like kind of hangs back and manipulates stuff in the back, but I kind of like that she was introduced as like not as a middling person, but I don't know how to put it. Like she's not in charge, but whenever she shows up, she's in charge of the situation.
Yeah.
Like that kind of vibe. Does that make sense?
Yeah, she's like a commander.
Yeah. What was I gonna?
For lack of a better term.
Sure. But yeah, so turns out it was just a clone. The others are able to go after her. They get back Kurai, of course. And I thought about, once I decided to start doing this chapter, I briefly considered having Kurai wake up and do a surprise attack, but I'm just like, nah, man, this guy's on death's door. He ain't doing jack.
Yeah.
The only thing he's trying to do is keep breathing.
That would be very Goku of him.
Yeah, very, yeah,
No,
yeah.
not.
It's like he likes
He already has a lot of similarities to Goku. He's not Goku.
His powers, yeah, but not his stupidity.
Not his person. No, yeah, he doesn't. His personality's not like that. But no, yeah. Let's see. Then the fight concludes.
Yeah, pretty much ends the same way as it did in the original.
Lose Bakugo.
Yeah.
And then we have the scene with everyone being taken by the medical team.
Yeah.
And it's very emotional on Mina's end.
Yep, and Ida too.
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah. Both of his best friends are having a meltdown. So.
I mean, understandably.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, and and so.
Yeah. So sorry guys, but you do not get to know if Kurai survives quite yet. You'll find that out. You'll have a definite answer by the next chapter. Yeah, I thought about giving you guys, closure and peace of mind at the end of this, but nah, it's more fun to watch you guys dangle for a bit.
Sorry.
I'm not at all. I don't know. Did anything stand out to you? Like mostly this was like I don't want to call
it was a very action packed.
Yeah. There's not a whole.
Which you guys know is not my favorite.
Yeah.
But it is nice when I can visualize it, which I thought was another chapter where most of the action was pretty easy to visualize. I enjoyed Ruby having her little badassery moment where she kicks because I don't like.
You would have liked anybody better if I made them kick Toga in the head.
Yeah, I don't like Toga at all. So, and then I see all the girls dressed up at her at Comic-Con. I'm like,
someone's got.
You have some issues, honey.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, but
it's like, can I help you?
Yeah. Do you need to talk to someone? No, it's. I mean, I'm sure it's a very cool character design. I get it.
I met the voice actress. She's super nice.
She's very cool.
Yeah,
she's very cool.
Yeah, I was like when I found out it was her, I was like, oh man, like she plays some weird characters like in different anime and stuff. I was just like, oh man, this is gonna be I'm like, is she gonna be like one of those people that's like just as weird as her character? No, she was like super normal, really nice. She let me hang out with her for like 15 minutes and we just talked about it. Was great.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is I'm like, this is strange. This is surprising.
It was our one of the last cons before COVID.
Yeah.
And it was dead
before the dark times.
Yeah. But I mean, even
it was 2 years ago.
It was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
It was
during June.
Yeah, but what happened was the con here in our town. They changed venues on them last minute, and so no one knew where it was, except for the vendors.
That's right, I forgot about that.
And so it was very, very small, but it was kind of nice because we had a lot more time to like talk to people and get to know them.
Yeah.
And so it was pretty fun.
Yeah.
We were just there running a booth, but it was pretty cool. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, tangents.
We're good
there's
at those.
the chapter. Yeah, we are.
Yeah. So. I realized that a little too late on the last video release that I told you guys to go vote on which of us did the better Jetter Bend. And I put the link to the website, but I didn't put the poll up in time. So I'm gonna leave the poll up for another couple of weeks, and I'll announce
see it.
I'll announce the winner at the I'll announce the winner at the end of the next chapter.
I haven't seen the current poll.
I haven't looked at the I put up the poll, but I haven't looked at who's voted yet.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll.
No one said anything in the reviews. All that hard work. Just kidding. It wasn't.
No, some people. A couple people mentioned them in the last review, in the last chapter's reviews, I think.
I did not.
Yeah, because we put up the video, and then I put up the physical chapter, so some people responded to the video.
I didn't see it.
You didn't see it?
No.
We covered it last. No, I don't know.
I have no memory of this place.
Okay, Gandalf.
Okay.
All right,
Being a parent brings Gandalf out of you. I'm not trying to rob you.
I'm trying to help you.
That's just raising toddlers. Anyway, sorry, I'll stop rambling. We'll go now. It was the pug.
Good grief, Taco.
She's so stinky.
Why did I agree to take you in?
Because she's cute with her one eye and her
Okay.
pugness.
Okay, you know what? I have always wanted a pug because pugs are just so ridiculous looking. The fact that this one had one eye just made it infinitely better.
Yeah, I know. I woke her up. She farted on me. I don't care.
Stop farting on people.
Don't worry. She's
That's
loved.
rude.
She's very loved.
Yeesh.
Hello.
Hello, Chaco the Taco Doggo. Say hi to everybody. Floppy paw.
She's like, leave me alone. I was sleeping.
Alrighty, so we will do. Let's see. I think the next two chapters are a regular release schedule, but then after that, we are going on vacation, so you won't hear from us for like 3 weeks.
You're not gonna release a chapter?
I'm not gonna release I'm not releasing the chapter ahead of the video.
Okay.
But you know, once that I'll put up another reminder once it comes time for us to go on vacation. But I just thought I'd give you guys a heads up that that's coming. In the meantime, thank you so much for watching. Thank you very much for your reviews. Thank you for helping us hit plus 200 reviews. And I look forward to seeing what the next 200 say, because this story is going to be going on for quite some time.
You just okay.
I didn't just anything. This story goes past his death.
Yes, we've established.
It will go so far past his death.
I feel your pain.
Stay plus ultra. I'm out.
Have a good one, guys.